I'd like to talk about the important aspects of socialization, what it does, what are the driving factors, along with the idea that we can resocialize a population to create new normals and values and rules. First, let's take a dive into socialization. Socialization is a process that begins in early childhood where individuals learn and acquire a sense of culture, values, habits, and attitudes towards society at large. We can think of it as a nurturing aspect within the nature versus nurture argument in science. Which has had a larger impact on the individual and the way they are? Is it from the inherited genes, or is it the learned behavior through socialization? I'll let you decide on that. The crucial years of socialization occur throughout an individual's childhood, beginning in infancy, where a baby will learn how people perceive and interact with them. As the child ages, they begin to enter a larger circle of people, and the perception of society increases outside of their immediate family. This is when an individual will begin to understand the important cultural values that society at large has. Without these values and customs being passed down from generation to generation, the culture will no longer exist. This leaves a large gap that will need to be filled, whether it be decided by the entire population or a select few who are in charge. There are 6 agents to socialization that happen throughout an individual's lifetime. It begins in the family. This is where an individual will observe and learn how to behave with others, what to say or not to say. The parents will be their first teachers in how society, relationships, values, habits, and rules work. As an individual ages, they enter the school system. The school system has a more formalized way of teaching about socialization. There are more rules and expectations within a school environment, such as what proper behavior looks like when we are in crowds, or how we should behave around authority. Children begin to learn about the importance of listening, thinking critically, and how to be punctual, along with the idea that there can be repercussions to choices they make that come from others than their parents. Along with the school system, individuals start having peer groups. This includes not only the friends that you have and interact with, but everyone who is around you within your age group. These will consist of classmates, other children in classes above and below you whom you may begin to interact with through play in the playground. It's important to note that peers don't only exist solely in the school environment, but they can exist of other children from different clubs, sports teams, or religious groups. Then we have mass media. Mass media consists of everything that we see, read, or hear about. It's inclusive of all the news outlets, social media, internet blogs, YouTube, books that we read, everything. And as we age, it becomes the workforce. Every workplace has a set of values or culture in which a company or an organization tries to achieve. This can range from encouraging employees to continuously seek and acquire new skills, or requiring individuals to stay up to date on the most current research within their field. Depending on the type of career an individual chooses, the socialization will be vastly different. The socialization within trades look quite different than that to an anesthesiologist. Finally, we arrive at religion. If an individual is religious, this is another important aspect of socialization and can be more important than school. An important aspect of religion helps teach children's faith, moral values, and confidence. So one might ask, if we can socialize individuals, can we desocialize and resocialize them? The answer is yes. This is what I believe is happening around the world at an increasingly fast pace. First, let's look at what desocialization means and what does that look like. Desocialization is a process that can happen at any point throughout an individual's lifetime. It is defined as a specific loss of social priorities, values, rules, norms, as well as alienating an individual from a specific or collective group. Important characteristics of desocialized personality are the removal of an individual from old norms, values, rules of conduct, and the loss of social experience which affects self-realization in society. It is essentially destroying the moral foundations of an individual's personality, and the person is unable to restore all lost values and norms in full. If we take a look at the restrictions that are being widely used across Western civilizations, we see that 5 of the 6 agents have been taken down. Families are no longer speaking or visiting each other for differing views on their V status. Schools have been systematically closing and reopening for 2 years, leaving children to try and cope with this online learning. Religious gatherings and congregations have been significantly reduced or shut down altogether. We are limited to the number of people we are allowed to see, and in some cases outright banned from seeing others, depending on where you are. Finally, most workplaces have continued to do remote working, which means many people around the world are working in their house, only interacting with coworkers and peers through Zoom meetings or quick phone calls. This has left all of society with only one aspect of socialization: mass media. When all we have left for agents of socialization is mass media, this means that all of our cultural values, norms, rules, habits, and way of being is coming solely from one source. If it is the evening news telling us about the new and increased restrictions, shaming people who are protesting against the restrictions, doctors who are supporting and encouraging the restrictions, they are the only ones setting up the new norms and values of what society is supposed to look like. This is a very dangerous state to be in. It's essentially letting a few individuals or government, whether or not they're qualified, to determine what our new world is going to look like. We are all so isolated that we cannot discuss whether or not these values are what we want or if we agree with them. We cannot stand up against the draconian measures. We cannot even have our input into what we believe as a collective should be the direction we want our culture to look like. Simply put, mass media is resocializing the entire population, teaching everyone the new norms and rules in which we all must play by. We are at a point in time where we have to decide, is this the way we want to move forward? Are people even aware of the desocialization of our society occurring? The dangers of this is mass formation is taking over the entire population through mass media. People are making decisions based off their emotions rather than logic and common sense, or even facts for that matter. Our culture has been destroyed, and there is a large gap that is being filled by these authoritarian views, which are being pushed by the media and those who are hypnotized. It may sound like a gross overstatement, but when we look at how governments are talking about their citizens, it's hard to refute. For example, Macron, the president of France, has openly talked about wanting to piss off the unvaccinated and make life as difficult as possible. The Chief Minister, Michael Gettr from Australia, has declared that anyone against V mandates are anti-vaxxers, regardless of their V status. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, has openly asked on French television whether or not we should tolerate the unvaccinated. Now, I don't know what he means by tolerate. I'll let you decide that. These are just a few examples of the authoritarian mindsets that are being normalized by our mass media. We have to have an open discussion on these topics. So it's time to get some courage, stand up, and say no more. Otherwise, our future is looking quite bleak.